The purpose of the PV drilling permit to work system is to control any work that may present a hazard or high risk to personnel, the integrity of the drilling unit, or conflict with other work by introducing hazards and risks previously not identified. The objective of the permit to work system is to ensure that certain work is adequately defined, planned and authorised, and that all hazards are identified and control mechanisms are in place. The PV drilling permit to work system includes, but is not limited to, the following operations: any hot work involving welding, burning, heating, any other spark producing activity or potential ignition source. Work requiring entry into any tank or confined space. Work where there is a danger of falling into the sea or any work over water activity. Work involving the use of electrical equipment that is not intrinsically safe, such as cameras, radios, cell phones, etc. Work on any pressurized system where there is a possibility of pressure being released. Work on electrical or mechanical equipment requiring energy isolation to ensure the safety of personnel. Work on electrical equipment in hazardous areas and to eliminate sources of ignition. Work carried out below sea level on spud cans or pontoons that can affect the stability of the vessel or any diving activities. Work that might affect or disable the rig safety systems, such as firefighting, gas detection, watertight doors, etc. Work involving perforating or acidizing operations, radioactive materials, explosives or other dangerous substances. Work on or near moving equipment where safety barriers and guards have to be bypassed. Work involving heavy lifts with mechanical equipment such as grains, BOP hoists that are near maximum safe working loads. It is the responsibility of the OAM, person in charge, to ensure compliance with the permit to work system. The responsible person is the OAM or person in charge, who normally works a 12-hour tour, and when off duty, the person in charge shall be the night tool pusher who shall administer the permit to work system during this time. The issuing authority is the respective area supervisor as designated by the OAM. The issuing authority normally works a 12-hour tour and will hand over any active permits to the oncoming issuing authority, who will countersign this section on the permit to state he is aware of the activity and approving it to continue for the time stated. He will also inform the performing authority. The performing authority is the senior person assigned to the task at the worksite. The performing authority can also be from a third-party company. Individual personnel assigned to the task at the worksite shall follow the instructions of the performing authority. The permit to work system requires a sequential transfer of authority starting and finishing with the responsible person. All permits must be presented to the responsible person for approval prior to the commencement of any associated task. At the completion of the permitted task, the responsible person must be advised and will then close out the permit after ensuring the worksite has been made safe. Preparation of the permit or permits and associated supplemental certificates shall be carried out by the performing authority in consultation with the issuing authority. The permit to work shall then be submitted to the responsible person for final approval and registration. A permit to work shall not be valid until it has been approved by the responsible person. Personnel dedicated as the performing or issuing authority for a permit to work will fulfill the same role or title on any related supplemental certificates. For an isolation certificate, the performing and issuing authority shall confirm before signing that the energy source has been isolated by a designated competent person. For an entry certificate, the performing and issuing authority will only sign after a test of the atmospheric conditions in the confined space to be entered has been done by an authorised competent person prior to an entry, and the findings have been recorded on the entry certificate in section 2 by the authorised person to state that the space is safe to enter. Tasks identified under the permit to work system will be assigned to the following permit to work and supplementary certificate categories. Is hot work. is cold work. A hot work permit applies to any type of work which involves actual or potential sources of ignition and which is to be carried out in an area where there may be a risk of fire or explosion, or which involves the emission of toxic fumes or vapours from the application of heat. The hot work permit is only valid for the specific site listed and approved on the permit. The hot work permit remains valid for a continuous period of up to 12 hours or until the end of the performing authority's tour, whichever comes first. A new permit shall be issued at the end of the shift or after 12 hours, whichever comes first. There are 3 copies of each hot work permit which are distributed as follows. Top copy to the issuing permit office. Second copy, performing authority, to be displayed or kept on the person at the worksite. The third copy is with the issuing authority. A flammable gas test must be carried out prior to the issue of a hot work permit for an area where the presence of gas is possible and will be conducted by an approved gas tester. Continuous monitoring shall be conducted when carrying out hot work in confined spaces. The results of this test and any subsequent test shall be recorded on the permit and entry certificates. A cold work permit is required for a task that does not involve hot work but has a high risk potential. The cold work permit remains valid for a continuous period of up to 12 hours until the end of the performing authority's tour, whichever comes first. There are 3 copies of each cold work permit which are distributed as follows. Top copy to the issuing permit office. Second copy, the performing authority must have it displayed or kept on the person at the worksite. The third copy is with the issuing authority. It is important to note that if the work or task specified on the permit has not been completed at the end of the shift of the named performing authority, the permit to work must be signed off and a new permit to work issued before the opposite or oncoming shift can continue the work. If conditions change during the work being carried out, the job must stop and the issuing authority informed. All work must cease on the sounding of the fire or gas alarm or if instructed by a PA announcement. On completion of work, the performing authority will ensure that all tools and equipment have been removed and that the work site is safe and has been left in a safe and tidy condition. Only then will he sign the work complete section of the permit to work. Supplementary certificates may be required for a permit to work. They can be issued if special activities are to be performed in conjunction with a given task. These are separate from the permit to work but are referenced on each permit to work document. There are 2 categories of supplementary certificates. Isolation, which is lockout, tag out of energy sources. Entry into confined spaces. Before a permit to work is issued, it may be necessary to isolate the equipment or plant to be worked on. The isolation certificate provides a means of documenting energy isolation so that the task may proceed safely. The energy isolation certificate must be signed by the issuing authority and by the performing authority as verification of the applied energy isolation has been completed by a designated competent person. The issuing and performing authority on the isolation certificate will be the same as the issuing and performing authority on the related permit to work. There are 3 copies of each isolation certificate which are distributed as follows. Top to the permit issuing office. Second copy with the performing authority to be held in person or displayed at the worksite. Third copy is with the issuing authority. An entry certificate must be issued when it is necessary for personnel to enter confined spaces such as vessels, tanks, voids, spud cans, structural members or any area designated as such by the OIM. The main purpose of the entry certificate is to certify that the atmospheric conditions in the space to be entered are acceptable and to document the necessary precautions. The entry certificate is supplemental to the permit to work and does not allow for any confined space entry until a permit to work has been raised to address the safety issues. A permit to work must be raised before any task can be undertaken in a confined space, which includes visual inspection. The entry certificate is raised prior to the permit to work being issued and shall remain in force until the entry certificate and the permit to work are cancelled. The certificate requires an authorised gas tester to conduct the testing and to show the findings on the certificate, and they will sign section 2 of the certificate to state the space can be safely entered. There are 3 copies of each entry certificate. They are distributed as follows: top copy with the issuing permit office, second copy with the performing authority to be held on person or displayed at the worksite. The third copy remains with the issuing authority. The colour of the entry certificate is green. Monitoring the effectiveness of the permit system shall be verified by conducting spot checks and inspections. Spot checks will be conducted by OAM person in charge and by the issuing authority and any onboard supervisor to ensure that tasks for which the permit to work has been issued are being undertaken in the manner described in the permit to work.